Hello and welcome to Boomer Live. Today we're going to be talking about the New Zealand versus England game, which got over earlier today, and we're going to be looking ahead into India versus Bangladesh game, which will be played tomorrow. And of course, it was a big game today for England and New Zealand, and you saw how it turned out to be. New Zealand couldn't get over the line, and we did discuss about it how they are going to face challenges getting outside Sydney, how they're going to be facing challenge in quick wickets. But you have to give to England; they got off to a good start, and also again catches win matches. We often say this when you give chances to players and not expect this from New Zealand team. New Zealand team are one of the best fielding units out there in this World Cup. And yesterday also we praised their fielding efforts, but today they went on to drop Butler twice, and Butler did come out, firing. And England were able to post 179, one of the highest scores of this year's World Cup. And New Zealand just couldn't finish it off. Kane Williamson played a very slow knock again. We'll be talking about that. And Glenn Phillips, he was single-handedly trying to take New Zealand home, but then it just wasn't enough. I have Sandeep Bunny and Jaren with me. I'll get to Sandeep Bunny first up. Sandeep Bunny, your thoughts on this game and how much has it affected now for England? How is it going to really affect England now, the qualification scenario? Because this win was much needed for them. As we did discuss, if they're going to lose today, they were going to get knocked out.
Yeah, I think it was a do or die game for England, and both the games will actually be do and die for England. Even the game against Sri Lanka, it is going to be it is going to be a potential knockout for England because now we have all the three teams, that is Australia, New Zealand, and England, on 5 points in 4 games. But right now, I think England and New Zealand look to be the two teams that are going to be going through to the semifinals, because for now things look very gloomy for Australia, especially after their net run rate. England defeated New Zealand by 20 runs, so I think they have taken a lead of somewhere close to zero point 0.5 net run rate points in favor of England. So Australia will definitely be facing Afghanistan. So they'll have an sort of an easier opponent as compared to England. We know Sri Lanka, if they turn up, and they can obviously cause a huge threat for the England camp. But generally speaking, England will be the favorites going into that game, and so will Australia will be the favorites going into the game against Afghanistan. So it is going to be interesting to see which of the two teams pushes more, because for Australia, I think they'll have to win by at least 50 to 60 runs more than what England pulls off against Sri Lanka. So if England wins against Sri Lanka by 20 runs, so Australia will have to go on and win by close to 70 to 80 runs, because otherwise I don't think they can go ahead of England in the net run rate. So
Yeah.
things are going to be very gloomy for Australia if they don't manage a huge victory against Afghanistan. So the agenda for the day will be win the toss and bat first.
Interesting, because that's something which has really helped a lot of teams through the course of this tournament, Jaren. How do you see this? Now, the moment you score anything in excess of 160, you're having that cushion to defend and you're able to defend targets successfully, which was not the ideal case before this tournament, or the entire trend set around the world was win the toss, bat second, chase any total down, no matter how big it is. But now in this tournament, the tables have turned. People are going for the traditional approach, trying to score anything in excess of 150. Looks like we've traveled at least 10 years back in time in T20 format, where teams are looking to play more technical, more conservative brand of cricket to reach to a formidable total, which is defendable, and ultimately bowlers are in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke about this in the preview as well to the World Cup, that this year's World Cup is going to be a bit different from what we normally see. But that's where I think this year's World Cup, the flavor of this year's World Cup has been much more exciting and much more interesting, because you don't know how things are going to turn up. And even teams like Ireland or Afghanistan or Sri Lanka have started. I mean, I wouldn't count Sri Lanka in that list, but at least Ireland, Afghanistan, and Netherlands or Zimbabwe have started to believe that they can beat the bigger teams, the bigger fishes. And today, what we saw, I felt was, I felt New Zealand were on track. To be very honest, they should have gone on to win. And Kapil is very right to point out there was Kane Williamson's innings that really derailed them. I mean, their chase, because I mean, even though they got off to a bad start in terms of the wickets, you still felt like New Zealand were scoring on the required run rate, and they weren't playing a lot of dots. That was really impressive about the innings of Kane Williamson as well. That he didn't, not Kane Williamson, rather Glenn Phillips, that he did not accumulate too much dots. But what Kane Williamson did in that period of time was, stagnate the run rate, and it became that much more difficult for the opposition, and all the pressure was on Glenn Phillips. And what we also saw in the English innings, for instance, was once the ball got older, which is something that we've seen in other tournament, other matches in this tournament, that when the ball got older, it was easier to score. But today, I felt when the ball got older and softer, it was much more difficult to score, and cutters were coming into picture a lot more, and that's where you saw
Yeah, something which
Sam
we did
Curran.
discuss in the last the preview of this game
Yeah,
as well, right? How Gabba hasn't really played out like the Gabba; it has played out more like a
yeah,
very dry
yeah.
surface, which really baffled me a lot. I understand there was a game which was played earlier today in Gabba, but even if you look in that Bangladesh versus Zimbabwe game, the pitch was sticking quite a bit, where the cutters were coming into play a lot more. Mustafizur Rahman was able to really ball like how he used to ball in Dhaka and Chittagong. So something which is very surprising from a GABA standard, and it's been one of the most wettest Australian summers so far because it's been raining a lot. So moisture was something which we all expected. We expect GABA to be even more quicker, but it's not been the case there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the two teams were a bit caught off guard, I would say, because England as well, when they were batting in their first innings, especially, I think did not see it coming when New Zealand came back or came roaring back. The way England played in the first few overs, especially the power play, I think that's where England really did well. One of the best power plays in this tournament was today's match, where England finished off at a very good score in the power play. I think uh, where they finished off was really good and they didn't lose any wickets. And that's where I really appreciate the way Alex Hales batted, because Alex Hales really took the pressure off Josh Butler. Josh Butler didn't seem like he came in the game with the weight of a captain, which you expect. He is
Yeah.
leading his country to the World Cup, the pinnacle of T20 cricket, and it's his first ever World Cup, by the way. And so, two matches that he's won, he's not won them as easily as you would have expected England to win. So there was a lot of pressure on him coming in, and he started off a bit slow. But Alex Hales, the way he played was just excellent, and that really took the pressure off Josh Butler, allowed him to play the innings in his own pace. And once you end up 48 for no loss in in a T20 match in any part of the world, I think that's a very good start. Let alone in a place like Australia where you expect the ball to get a little
Yes.
better. But
And especially in this
yeah,
tournament in particular, 48 for no
yeah,
loss in
but
this
that's why
tournament is
this pitch
a
was a bit odd, isn't it? Because the moment 15th over or so came in, uh, everyone was bowling. The cutters was really doing well. For example, Trent Bolt, who came into ball, was bowling a lot more quicker, and that's expected because that's how he's gained success in Sydney. But
Mhm.
Josh Butler really took a liking to him, and he smashed him for 3 boundaries in that over. But the moment New Zealand started to ball cutters, the players started to get out, and the ball started to go higher and higher in the air, and chances were becoming much more difficult, and wickets were falling. When that's where I felt, New Zealand in their innings, that period of time, after 6 overs till the 12th, 13th over, when you really felt like when England scored their most runs, New Zealand couldn't score as much because of Kane Williamson and his slow innings. So that's where I felt New Zealand really derailed.
Hmm. We have a very interesting question from Kapil actually, and I think we'll take that up. Kapil, just wait for some time. We'll take that up, but I'll come to Sandeepani over here. I understand England went on to win the match, but do you think they kind of missed the trick by not sending the exact matchup, especially when Sandner and Sodhi just balled 8 overs, 48 runs? It is not something which England could have done way better than that. 8 overs, 48 runs was something which you could have maximized to 8 overs, 68, where the score could have been 200. Entry points of some left-handers could have been questioned. I know they delayed the entry point of David Malan, for example, but some entry points could have been questioned at the end of the day, isn't it? Because the matchups was definitely there was a shorter boundary towards the leg side for left-handers at times where you could have utilized it because today it was played on the third strip in Gabba, which meant one side was invariably shorter compared to the other side. And that's where I thought they could have maximized it, which they did not.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, they promoted Moeen Ali up the order at number 3 just to tackle the spinners. Is what I feel. But once he got out, I think they could have brought in somebody like a Ben Stokes at number 4. But obviously, it he got out. I think at the start of the 14th over, and they probably decided that you have somebody like Liam Livingston in your bank, so why not use him earlier? So I will not actually question their tactics, because I think sending in Moeen Ali at number 3 was a ploy to sort of uh, get the spinners off their game. But I think both Ish Sodhi and Mitchell Santner bowled brilliantly, and even Sodhi finally managed to get Moeen Ali out. So it was all in all a great bowling performance from New Zealand, especially after the start that England had. I mean, they did not start off in a proper sort of a English sort of a manner where
Yeah.
they go really hard at the bowlers. But
Mm.
Alex Hells was trying. I mean, I would totally agree with Jedin over there, because the way Alex Hells attacked the bowlers in the power play, it actually gave Josh Butler a lot of time to get himself in, and then Josh Butler did what he is expected to do, and what Josh Butler does best in T20 internationals, just go after the bowling in the death overs. But
Mm.
I think at the end of the day, the drop catches really went on to hurt New Zealand. I think the catch that Williamson dropped, it was a fairly difficult chance.
Yeah.
I think that was the last over of the power play, where
Yeah.
I
when
think,
Butler
I
was
mean,
only on 8.
just to come in there, I think that catch is pretty much that chance was pretty much made by Williamson, I would say, because it was a difficult one.
Yeah,
Most
definitely.
players
I
wouldn't
mean,
have gone
and
for it at
Williamson
that
has
early in the
taken a
match.
lot of catches like that. And
Yeah,
Williamson
and
has in the past taken a lot of catches running backwards and
yeah,
sort of diving and finishing the catch.
but
So
the
I think
Mitchell one was
that would have been a half chance. So I won't
yeah,
really blame Williamson on that. But the one that Mitchell dropped when Butler was on 40, and he had not yet got a move on. So he was, I think, 40 of 31 or 32 deliveries when Daryl Mitchell dropped that simple chance at deep mid wicket. And after
yeah.
that, Butler just went after the bowling, and I think went on to score another 33 runs in
Mm.
17, 18 balls. So I think that is where the game really went out of New Zealand's grasp. I think if they could have got Butler out at that stage, I think they could have restricted England for another 10, 15 runs less, maybe. Uh, but also, I think they did not have a very good start. Finn Allen and Devon Conway got out early. Finn Allen was really trying to go after the bowling. It was a brilliant catch by Butler to get rid of Devon Conway. But once they lost two quick wickets, I think the way Williamson and Glenn Phillips, especially Glenn Phillips, batted, it was okay. I mean, they were in the chase till the 15th over. But
Yeah.
yeah, I understand people criticizing Williamson, because once you have 8 wickets in your hand, and like already 10 overs are done, and you need around 11 to 12 runs per over, you can take a bit more chances. And I think that is where Kane Williamson really did not get going tonight. But great batting by Glenn Phillips to take New Zealand
Mm.
so close.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, at this Gabba pitch, I mean, the players were finding it very difficult to straight away come in and go after the bowling. So once Glenn
Absolutely.
Phillips got out, 47, 48 needed of 3 overs, looked highly improbable. And also great bowling by England in the death overs as well. They knew exactly which areas to go after, and I think another brilliant performance from Mark Wood, Sam Curran. They are doing a
Mm.
perfect job in this World Cup. Also, I think Chris
Absolutely.
Wokes made a good comeback. But other than that, again, I'm very baffled by the fact that Adil Rashid got another game, and again went
I mean,
like
today was
completed
a
the game
good day
wicket.
to try him out, but today him going at 8 runs per over did not make any sense for because today was today was
He
one of those
hasn't
wickets
picked
that
up.
gave him more
I
The
consistency.
think
problem is
today, I mean,
Adil Rashid has
I'll be
not
honest.
looked
So,
like he's
so
going
I
to pick
think
up a
the
wicket.
guy who went after him was Glenn Phillips, right? He was the one who really took Adil Rashid on. Till then, Adil Rashid was bowling brilliantly, even outfoxed Glenn Phillips. But the catch dropped there by Moeen Ali, which really, I mean, I think that it's this kind of a tournament for Rashid Khan, when things are not going your way, nothing's going your way. And that catch could have changed this tournament all
Well,
around. That
there's
could have
been a
been the
World Cup
one
where a lot of good
confidence
fielders are dropping
giver.
catches as well, so it does not really make a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean,
sense to me. How are these catches being
Fairly
dropped so
simple
easily?
catches as well. So
Yeah, all our
yeah, I
today's
spinners
think
one,
were
I
getting
think
dropped.
I think if you look at Kohli, Mitchell, and Moeen Ali, if you compare the three of them, Moeen Ali's catch is probably the most simplest of all of them.
Yeah. Either way, I
And
think there's something wrong. I don't know, whatever. I think it's got to do a lot with the weather conditions. I know England
yeah. I
plays
mean,
in
we
one of the most
discussed it
coldest.
yesterday as well. I think it's the numb fingers and the cold
Yeah,
fingers.
England does play in some of the coldest conditions back home, but still here in Australia, it's gotten very cold. It's very windy as well. So it's not easy. Rob Key says England blew away Kiwis and they couldn't fly anyways. Absolutely, I think they just blew away the Kiwis. Are New Zealand really the nice guys? That's a very good point because something which I would have loved to risen as well through the course of the life. You saw Kane Williamson claiming a catch, Kane Williamson trying to step out of the crease before the baller being balled. Last year you saw a few instances where these things were happening, where they were trying to claim catches which was not really caught. Are New Zealand really nice guys, or are we giving them a tag which they don't really fit into? I know we call them nice guys for a lot of reasons. Also, we love this team. Nobody hates this team, but are they really trying to make an exploitation out of the tag?
Today, I think, I mean, in regards to the Kane Williamson catch, I felt, it was one of those catches where the player believes that he has caught it, but the replay shows something else. There was an
But,
analysis there
but
by
surely
it was
you
by
would know if the ball has touched
yeah, I
the
mean, there
ground
was an
and then
analysis by
landed
Garrett
somewhere over
Kimber
it.
on this, and he freeze framed that time, when the ball hit the deck. And in that video, what he says is Kane Williamson was looking straight, and the ball was dropped. It was right underneath his chest, and he was
Yeah.
looking straight. So according to him, at least, and what I agree as well, is that as a player, you at that point in time, at least you don't know where the ball is because you're not seeing where the ball is. You're only feeling it, and at least for him, it was in his hands. But what we saw in the replay was the fact that despite him holding it like this, I think the ball was still touching. So I think in that case, it was one of those chances where the fielders are unsure. Maybe
Absolutely.
Williamson must have believed it honestly, because I mean I still would like to believe the nice guy tag on my end at
Mm.
least.
Yeah, absolutely. Saloni says Abel use Spidey killing it today. Okay, thank you for that. I like Spider-Man. So yeah. Yeah, we've got SS98 asking another debatable selection call because last time around when he asked something, it did happen. So are we gonna see Harshal Patel tomorrow? Remember last time he did ask whether Dinesh Karthik, no, whether Deepak Huda should come in, and he asked for one more player, if I'm not wrong. Who was it?
Rishabh Pant.
Yeah, Rishabh
Rishabh.
Pant.
No, 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 no. Was it Rishabh
Yeah,
Pant?
yeah.
It was. It
It
Yeah,
was
was.
he
It
Rishabh
was.
asked
Pant
for
instead of DK,
Huda in
and
place of Akshar Patel and Rishabh
yeah.
Pant in place of
Yeah,
Deepak
Rishabh Pant
Karthik.
did come in to keep, and tomorrow he might start as well because DK's injury, we're not sure. Today, though, he trained very hard. And Rahul Dravid did say they'll assess him later on. I'm not, maybe because of the left arm spin factor, they might just try Rishabh Pant. We don't know how it will go. But can we see Harshal Patel tomorrow? It's is it a possibility to bring in Harshal Patel and India going in with an all pace attack with maybe only Akshar Patel maybe coming in instead of Deepak Huda?
I honestly, I don't think. Again, it's a call that you think
I
that the
think at
Indian
this point in
selectors will not
time,
make
we are
at
all
this point.
scared. We are all scared to go against SS98's predictions.
Yeah, his
Yeah,
questions
because
are very right.
honestly, I feel with Shami, Arshdeep Singh, and Bhuvneshwar Kumar doing a good enough job, and Ashwin holding his end as well. I mean, he bowled those two half volleys in the last over that he bowled against South Africa, and then it ended up costing India the game. But I still feel he's a better suited player to sort of play. You should have one specialist spinner in your team. And I think India is going to stick with Ashwin, Shami, Arshdeep, and Bhuvneshwar Kumar for
Mm,
tomorrow's game
mm,
as well.
mm,
Unless something crazy happens and they want to try Harshal Patel in place of one of the seamers.
yeah, absolutely. He asked again, will India prefer playing semi-final against New Zealand in Sydney, given Sanders Sodi are always a threat to our batters? I mean, that's a good question because that's something which we all already did discuss. If Australia makes it to that semi-final, India will not have to play in Sydney. India will be playing in Adelaide against New Zealand. Either way, I think India will end up playing New Zealand, and we'll have to take it someday or the other. You will have to get the
But
better
right
of New Zealand.
now, as things look, I don't think Australia is going to make it to the semi-finals, because even if they win
Yeah.
big against Afghanistan, I think England will hold the key with the game against Sri Lanka,
And the
because
day
they
after
play at
tomorrow
the
is
end,
going to be a
so they would
big
know
day in
exactly
terms
what
of
is needed.
qualification. Day after tomorrow is going to be a judgment day for qualification from Group One, and I think that's where it's going to all lead up to. But guys, remember, if England loses Sri Lanka, there is another possibility coming in as well. But I know Australia will
No, I
be in
think so.
front. They'll really want Ireland to
Yeah,
defeat no,
Australia will
Afghanistan to
be
defeat
in front.
Australia, and I don't think that's going to be a possibility. But if Afghanistan goes on upset over there, and if Sri Lanka goes on to defeat England, then that's where the real fun kicks in. Sri Lanka makes it to the semi-final out of
Yeah.
nowhere. So see,
So
anything is
then Sri
possible.
Lanka
If
will
they want
have
to
to beat
rule,
England and hope that Afghanistan pulls off a rabbit out of the hat against Australia. So I
absolutely.
think that is again a very improbable case. That
So
is highly
yeah,
unlikely to happen.
something which we'll discuss about. But at this point, India will play New Zealand in Sydney, and which means you'll have to be better suited. I think India will prefer playing in Sydney rather than playing in Perth. And I think India have got the players. Someone like a Surya Kumar Yadav will hold the key in such a game where he's a terrific player of spin. You know how he can really counter it. And someone like Hardik Pandya as well. Remember, is Sodi is
And also
not your
the form
biggest
that
threat.
he has been in.
Yeah, is
I mean,
Sodi
nobody
is
can bet
not a
against
big
Surya
threat
Kumar
at
Yadav
all.
right now.
Yeah, though Sodi has a better matchup against Virat Kohli, but Sodi can never be your biggest. Your biggest threat is always going to be Trent Bolt and Tim Southee up front. And his story is not the most consistent of bowlers as well. He can be erratic with his
Yeah.
lines, with his lengths as well. So the players you have to be wary of is Trent Bolt and Tim Southee, because you know how they blow away your top orders. You don't want a 5 for 3
And
situation in
then
a World
another
Cup when you
surprising
can.
day where sort of not a surprising day. I mean, the battle between Butler and Bolt, we can safely say that Butler won it today as well because he did not lose his wicket. And the form that Bolt was in, it was a win for Butler just by the fact that he did not lose his wicket, even though he did not get the quickest of starts. But I
Hmm.
think again, today I'll give a lot of credit to Alex Hells just because of the way that he took on the bowlers in the power play. And otherwise I think this 179 couldn't have been achieved without Hills. He was lucky.
Absolutely.
There was an inside edge that flew past the stumps, the French cut in the first over itself. But
Yeah.
after that, I think the way he took on Tim Southee, and especially he realized his matchups and just took on Tim Southee, and I think also he was targeting Santner as well, who eventually came out and took his wicket. But I think the damage had already been done with the
Yeah.
platform that he set up for England. I think that was a brilliant platform. Both Butler and Alex Hill's set up for England. 81, 79 or 80 at the end of 10 overs without losing any wickets is a highly commendable job.
Absolutely. The biggest question, the biggest elephant in the room is definitely this question. Can Kane Williamson drop himself? I thought today his knock was really bad. To play at a strike rate of 100. I know he came into bat when you were 8 for 1, and suddenly you lost another wicket, 28 for 2 in 4.5 overs. 5 overs, 28 is still bad when you're chasing 179. But I understand he's an anchor of a team, but then you have to play according to demands of the game. If you do not have a game to accelerate towards the dead, and then I think his knocks in the middle are making no use, because he's trying to play the deft touches, he's trying to get the singles, doubles, and he's actually incurring a lot of dot balls, which is not a good sign. The moment you're
Yeah. I
playing out
think
a lot more dot balls, what's going to happen today? I think they played close to 43 dot balls, which means you have played 7 overs of dot balls, and in which Kane Williamson had a huge part to play in that as well, in the 43 dot balls, which New Zealand went on to play. Jaren, my question is, can Kane Williamson really take a call saying, okay, fine, there's a player like Mark Chapman who's waiting on the wings. He's done really well for New Zealand, and for the team's sake, I'll drop myself. Tim Southee has done well as a captain for this team as well. Take the reins, and that's the best suited way to go ahead for New Zealand.
I think at this point in time, yeah, I really think so. I think it's hurting New Zealand to a very good extent. It's a very tough call to take as a captain. And Kane will have to sit down, think about it, and he knows his game better than anyone else. A player knows how well is he doing and how much he can improve. And you really hope that he understands this, because today it was just a horror show, really. And when you talk about ballers, so when you talk about ballers defending a target, you always look at the required run rate, right? So I think as a batsman, you probably should look at the strike rate. And
Yeah.
if you're chasing 118, 120 balls, you need a strike rate of 150. Kane Williamson strike rate of 100 is just putting that much more pressure on the other team to make sure that they play much better, so that they are able to make up for the the kind of time that Kane Williamson spent. And playing 40 deliveries is almost equivalent to scoring one third. Playing one fourth of the match. And one third of the match rather. So you've already played one third of the match and you haven't even scored more than one fourth of the required runs, which is just not what your team requires. You've just made it that much more difficult. And today's pitch, I felt 160. I think it was not that difficult to bat till
Yeah.
probably the 14th over. Once the ball got a little older, maybe 8 to 14 is the best time I felt was in today's pitch was there to bat.
Yeah.
And that's when Kane Williamson was actually batting and incurring those dot balls. So the issue really is not just the fact that you are incurring dot balls. The fact is you're not. The fact is if you're not scoring boundaries, it's all right rather, but you shouldn't incur dot balls, because dot balls really hurt you.
Yes,
If you're
absolutely.
scoring those singles, the scorecard keeps moving. You're at least giving Glenn Phillips that much amount of deliveries to keep going. Because I also felt like Kane Williamson's innings kind of put Glenn Phillips, kind of destroyed Glenn Phillips' momentum as
Oh,
well.
absolutely. That's
He
something which
wasn't.
we did talk about as well, right? When a
Yeah,
batter plays dot balls, it really does put pressure on your partner. Batting is all about partnerships. I don't think batting is ever a one-man show. Maybe one day you'll
yeah.
have a batter dominating, but then on the other hand, you need a partner who's really, backing you up, giving you the strike and not playing dot balls. Not playing dot balls is such a big factor in T20 cricket. And when you have a partner who's going to play a lot more dot balls, you're going to put pressure on Glenn Phillips. How much can Glenn Phillips do
Hmm.
alone? You can't expect him to do Superman stuff every day for you.
Yeah, and also, when you're hitting a six, you're feeling good. When you're hitting a boundary, you're feeling good. But that feeling and then momentum doesn't stay for long. If and if you play 2 to 3 dot balls and that the other player is almost having 4 to 5 deliveries before he again comes into play, and that's a break in his momentum. But if you hit a six, you get off strike, the other player gives you the strike back. What that really does, it's not only that, it also throws the bowler off its course, because as a bowler you might have sat down with your coach, you have made plans for a particular batsman, and your plans can only come good when you start getting into the rhythm, right? But the moment you have a shift in the batter who's batting, the bowler also has to shift his plans, and that kind of destroys the bowler's rhythm as well. And that's the reason why you see, I mean, if you really look at this year's World Cup, anchors have done a very good job. You look at Virat Kohli, for instance. Look at Aaron Finch. I know he's not scored at a very good strike rate, but
Yeah, that's where I think
he's played an anchor role.
I
You
think
know, I
that's
mean,
where I think Shenwari also has a point over here. He says all anchors have struggled.
no, I mean, I don't
Baba has won
agree with that. I
Baba
think
Milan.
anchors
He
have
brings
done
a lot
well.
more.
If you look at,
Also, I
I
think you
think if
can
you look
just
at those people
remove
who are trying,
David Malan from the list, because I think he has, over the last year or so, he has done a great job anchoring the England side. I think the side has
No,
become
no, he's
much more
talking about
stable
the
and balanced
T20
with the
World Cup
bat.
in general. I think he's talking about
Yeah.
T20 World Cup in general. I think a
Yeah,
couple of
also,
anchors
I
who
mean, in
come to my
T20
mind who
World
have
Cup
really
as well,
done
I
yeah, but
really
I
mean,
mean, if you look at today's match, for instance, I would say that Josh Butler's innings was more of an anchor-like innings than a destructive Josh Butler that you would see. He did not keep going from the start. He carried his bat to a certain extent, and the moment he started getting going was once he settled down. You saw Virat Kohli, for instance, play that kind of an innings. So I think in a way these anchors are doing a good job. An argument can be made. The hitters haven't done that well. I would say, on the other hand, like a Tim David, for instance, or Glenn Maxwell, everyone who's tried to dash right away has struggled, because I think these pitches have been a little bit more difficult to adjust to.
yeah,
And once you
yeah.
are able to adjust, you're able to go. I mean, I agree with
and
I
in
agree with the comment that was
in
made.
any game, be it T20,
Shinwari, I
probably
think
not in
some of those
T10,
batters
but in
have
T20,
struggled,
you
but
definitely need one or two anchors in your innings who can sort of take the
yeah, and
game
correct.
deep, yeah, in
Yeah, I
any
mean, you
way.
look at
And,
Devon
and I've
Conway also.
mentioned
I
this
think
for,
Devon Conway has been successful as well for the same reason. That's where I felt Devon Conway made a mistake by trying to up the ante way too early. That was just the
also, that
second
was a
over, if I'm not
spectacular
wrong.
catch
He
from
got
Josh
out.
Butler as well. So I
It
think,
was a brilliant
See,
catch. Regardless, it was not the length to
I
go for
thought
that
that over
shot. It
was
was a
really good.
premeditated shot.
He was not getting off the strike a lot. He was not scoring runs. So I
Yeah,
expected
I
him to
mean,
play a
but
big shot, and that's what happened. I don't
yeah, yeah,
blame
yeah.
Devon Conway for
I
doing
mean,
that.
you can't
It would
blame
have come
Devon
up and
Conway
have been a
because,
good score.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, my point being, for me at least, I felt it was a hit out of jail card, which Devon Conway didn't need to play, because I really feel that Devon Conway, if he incurs those 5 to 6 dot balls, 7, 8 dot balls,
See,
he
I'll
could
tell
have
you
really
one
made
thing.
up for them.
You can have one
And
of
at
them in
that
the team,
stage,
not everyone.
yeah, but I think,
One Devon Conway or one Kane Williamson, not both.
fair
Yeah,
enough.
definitely. But again, like today, Josh Butler played that anchor sort of a knock and then went after the bowling. But
I don't
at
think he
the
played
end,
anchor sort
at
of
the
a knock. He was powering, but then there were
yeah, he was
he
powering
was
towards the
not
later
looking at
half
the
of
pitch.
the innings. But you had somebody like if you talk about Alex Hells tonight's performance, if you look at his
See, I'll
innings,
tell you one
probably he
thing.
tried
Okay,
to
if
go
he's
after the shots.
anchor, I don't think you should calculate a knock anchorish because he accumulated a lot of balls. I think he was showing intent throughout this innings. He was not able to
Yeah, but
connect
at
few
the
because
same
of the
time, the pitch looked like not the pitch. I think the bowling was great, and he just looked to be struggling against the spinners. He was not getting, like, they were finding it difficult to get going, get the move on. And I think that drop catch actually helped England's momentum, and they finally got that boost. And you can't sort of drop catches of players like Josh Butler, Alex
absolutely.
Hills. I mean, the entire England team, it's filled with firepower. And
Mm.
I'm actually very surprised that they opted to send in somebody like a David Malan in at number 8, because I definitely feel that even though they might have considered, probably they might have used Moeen Ali as a pinch hitter to send him up at number 3 to
It
sort
was.
of
I think that
get
was
the
just a
spinners
matchup
off their.
call. It was a matchup call. That's why I felt
Yeah, it
Ben
was a
Stokes and
matchup
David
call, but
Malan also could have been
I
there.
would still back David Malan to come in at number 3 and bash the spinners as well, because
I
that is
mean,
what
his
David
striker
Malan has
hasn't been
done
so
in the
bad
past
this
for the
year.
team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Kapil has a very good point over here. He says, why don't ICC make boundary parameters same every ground in the world? A good question, because football field is the same everywhere in the world. In your pitch length is the same. Why can't boundary length be the same? Because at some stages you have 30 to 50-meter boundaries in some of the grounds in New Zealand. You have a 60-meter boundary. It's like on average in every ground in India on the square. And when you go to Australia, you have an 80-meter boundary. In Adelaide, you have an 88-meter straight boundary. So it's not easy at all to clear ropes. And in Australia, that's what, that's the best thing. I was watching highlights of an Indian match today. I'm like, where are they playing? What is this kids' game I'm watching? Because after watching so many matches in Australia, I'm like, bro, this is the real game. And there you're playing a just torture on ballers. Because you know that with the kind of game today, Glenn Phillips shot in India, it's a 6. Darren Mitchell shot in India, it was a 6. Anywhere in the world, it's a 6 except for Australia. And maybe 22 or 54 in India is like game in batter's hand. At least it's 12, 12 or 40 is game in batter's hand, in nowadays in India at least. But in Australia, 22 or 54
I mean,
is
the
like
2016 World Cup, when they needed, when they needed 24 to win in the final over West Indies, Carlos Brathwaite hit those sixes like it was just easy
19.
for
It
him.
was
right?
19 to win of the
Yeah,
final.
he
But
needed 19, but
I
he ended up hitting
even at
24.
Yeah,
that time,
19 rather.
I was so sure it was going to be West Indies who was going to win it. That's what
Yeah,
India
I
brings
think
to them.
at that stage, in that kind of a ground, if you get West Indies team into the final overs, if you have anything less than 35 to chase, I think any West Indies batter,
I remember the
regardless
game
of
in
which team is
Bombay.
batting, they've got that power to
Absolutely.
power smash it through. And on a ground like India, where on that ground where they played it, the boundaries were not as big as Australia, so you don't even have to get from the middle of the bat.
Yeah.
Like you've seen what Andre Russell does in IPL, for instance.
No,
Satyavani
you're talking
Wanda-
about Andre Russell. Yesterday, I was watching
But
highlights of
but
Andre
to be
Russell's
to be to
knock
be
against
fair to the
RCB in
groundsmen as well,
Chinnaswamy.
I mean, West Indies scored just 135 in their first 19 overs, and they had to score 4 sixes of the last over. So
I mean,
yeah,
either
I mean,
way, I thought that was not leave that game. I think just to talk about it, what you can do in India if you have wickets in hand and you can
yeah,
clear fences. The point is boundary length. Because I was watching this game, Andre Russell's knock against RCB. I know
But
some
then
people
what
will be
is the
very
standard
elated with
length?
that.
You'll have to
But
ICC will have to first.
tell me those
I
shots
think
which he played. It was just
in
ridiculous clearing the boundary. And you're in a graveyard in Chinnaswamy, man. It's like a bloody kid's park. And now talk about Chinnaswamy and talk about Gabba. Look how
And
much difference it
that
is.
is where RCB actually dominates, right?
Bro, RCB loses games in Chinnaswamy. I think
no,
RCB
RCB
will
And
actually
play
hence
off
I
and
think
hence
if I'm
the
not wrong, RCB has the worst record among IPL
at
teams in the
home.
home ground.
Absolutely.
and hence
Yeah,
the whatever Evil is
trophy
doing right
cabinet.
now. Yeah.
Hence the trophy cabinet.
No. I'm being very honest. As a bowler, I can understand. If you have short boundaries, then you're playing with angles. You're
Yeah,
playing with
I agree. I
you're
agree. The
you're on
margin
you're on
of
the
error
back
is
foot
so
straight up.
less.
You're playing with a
It's
lot
so
of
less.
angles.
No,
It's
but
actually
then
disheartening.
ICC will have to sit in a meeting and first
But I
they'll
think
have
I
to set
think
a parameter of
the
what is
issue
the
is also
standard
this,
boundary
right?
length.
If you look at the grounds that we
There should
have,
be a standard boundary length. I don't
Yeah.
think
I think if
that
you look
doesn't
at the
mean anything
boundaries we
different.
have, you will have to probably look at the history of the game itself, right? The history of the game was always a bunch of people just playing on any ground that they were able to manage. And as the game progressed, depending on where the stadium was built, that the dimensions came into picture. For example, Australia. If you look at Australia's population per square meter, it's not as much compared to maybe India, for instance. West Bengal, I think, has probably I think it's probably one of the highest. Kolkata, I think, has one of the highest dense cities in the world. So in these kind of places where you don't have much space to create a sports stadium,
But you know what,
it's not
Jay?
easy. So then
That
But to
you
be
means
have
fair,
to.
Eden Gardens was
standard
one of the
boundaries.
biggest stadiums in India
It
at
is
one
because
point,
it's
and
built on
now
a
they
defense
have
ground.
restructured
It's
and
I
built on
think
a
remodeled
defense
Eden
and
ground.
Gardens was never a big stadium in terms of the ground size. It was always a big stadium in terms of
yeah,
the
yeah, no,
capacity.
it was a big stadium in terms of the ground size. They have sort of diminished
Yeah, I
the
think
boundary length
Sanjivani,
as well.
the reason for that I think is because Eden Gardens is made on a defense ground, if I'm not wrong, and that's the reason why
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
making any adjustments to the stadium, any renovations, you need permission from the Defense Ministry of India or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
If I'm not
yeah.
wrong, but my point being, in places like so that's the reason why you can't really put that kind of restraint. That's one thing that modern cricket has really struggled with. Because the moment you put that kind of restraint, then how you might have to, stop playing in some of the stadiums. For
I don't
example,
know if you remember,
New Zealand
Jay.
has some
There
of the
was a
smallest
match.
stadiums in the world.
There was a match which was played in England in Champions Trophy. India versus Sri Lanka. India went on to lose that match. The boundary on one side was just 56 meters on the square. That was just ridiculous. You were playing on the fifth pitch, but 56 meters on the square is just ridiculous. And I remember every batter walking across trying to score something. They know the moment they even miss time, it's going to go for 6. It was just awful to see that. It was just like playing that one side एक side बड़ा है एक side छोटा है तो कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. That's when you
So it's
really
like when
India
you
plays
had
with
that
ball spinners.
when you play those gully cricket, you have those rules, right? You can't hit the car on the left side, so you
Ah,
have to play on the right side. Everything. I understand, but I
absolutely.
think what maybe probably ICC can do is the stadiums that are being built from now onwards must have a certain level. I think a
Standardized.
range in which Yeah, a standardized range, I would say.
I'm
You
okay with
can't.
big boundaries,
I
Compared
think
to
but I'm not
in
happy with
football
small
you
that
boundaries.
cannot
should be the ideal size
I think
dimensions.
you cannot demarcate that this is the exact meters you need to have, because that's impossible. I feel
You
because
can
cricket
set a
isn't that
range. You can
easy.
set a range
But I
between
feel a
65 to
range is
75,
required, at least
somewhere
for
in
the
between.
new stadiums that are being built. Because if we do it retrospectively, what might happen, some of the stadiums might get disqualified, and that might
Absolutely.
lead to a lot of furore. So I think from
You
now
can't do
onwards,
anything
maybe we can.
retrospectively at this point. Whatever you can do is you can bring maybe in for future stadiums a standardized boundaries,
Yeah,
75 meters. If it is, it's good. I'm not a big fan of small boundaries. If it's big boundaries, fine.
me
You
too.
give equal chance to bowler
I
and
think
batter.
you
But then
saw
again,
this year's World
well,
Cup,
you are a
right?
fast
I
bowler,
mean,
right?
if
You
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 are
will
a,
anyway will not be very fond of small boundaries.
It's a fact,
I think for a
man. To be
spinner,
honest,
I
if you
think
look at
it's the most
Firozshah
difficult for a
Kotla,
spinner, right?
फिरोजशाह कोटला में जो टॉप 10 में मारता है ना, वो गैबा और मेलबर्न में कैच है। सच बता रहा
Yeah,
हूँ। मेरे
that
को
is
इतना
totally
छोटा
fair. I mean, I totally understand your point, but I think in T20s in general, I think you can have boundaries ranging from 65 to 75 meters.
no, no,
In excess of
65 too
75,
less.
I think
75 should
yeah,
be
you
minimum.
can have one of the square boundaries at 65 because most of the revenue that the sort of the ticket collection
So
and the revenue that
this
ICC
is a
gets is from
problem.
No,
high scoring
This
I
is
think
the
that's
environments.
not a
problem.
fair thing to say, because I really think Sandipani, this year's World Cup has been the most exciting. Played on some of the
Yes,
largest grounds in the world. And
that
you
But
ask
but
certainly.
anyone in the comment
but
section if
you
you've
still
enjoyed
have
this World Cup or maybe the previous one where the boundaries were so short. I think everyone will say today's World Cup was fun, because you want that kind of
yeah,
unpredictability, and that
I
kind of
mean this
unpredictability
time's
only
World Cup
comes
has been a
when the ballers are in the game.
great exhibition just
You
because of the
know,
fact that last year we had all these whoever is winning the toss is winning the game. There was
yes, same thing. And remember, for example, in grounds like Sharjah, the boundary is if you hit it, you're going straight into a road. So that's just ridiculous. I feel, I know it was a very old stadium and everything. I totally understand with that. But the fact of the matter is, you want ballers to be in T20 as well. It has got to a stage where ballers are just,
But then you
throwing
already have
machines.
so many iconic stadiums with small boundaries.
No,
So
why do
all the
you
important
think?
matches are going to be played there
Sanjay,
anyway.
my point is just this. Why do you think in T20 they only spoke about batting template, not a bowling template as such? Why it was only batting which was focused much on you? If you have to win T20, you have to talk about batting. Because it got to a stage where they believe bowlers are just machines. If you are good enough, you can bowl Yorkers. That's also a defensive length. You were nowhere in the game. If you were going to ball shots, you were going to get hit. पर्थ मेलबर्न बैट्समैन को औकात सीख गया बैट्समैन को बताया if you don't have skill you can't survive in the game. I love this World Cup for this reason. There's a World Cup I love the most because ballers are in the game, because until today
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was just a disrespect on ballers. You have big bats, you're much more powerful now, smaller boundaries, Kookaburra which does not swing, which is going to come straight, flat roads provided. क्या चाहिए भाई, गली में खेल दो, इसमें क्या है?
No,
It was
but
just
still,
ridiculous.
having said all that, we still had a lot of games in 2014, 2016, 2012 where the par score was around 140, 150 because there was conditions for the bowlers to do well, even in those small dimension
And I think
boundaries.
meanwhile we should
So
thank Kapil for sparking this debate. Yes, he's hit the nail right in the coffin to start a huge debate. Maybe we can come
no,
back to
no,
the
but I
show again.
totally agree with you that cricket in general, especially in the recent times, has been more batsman centric. But this has been the case for a long time now. You remember Don Bradman, but tell me the best bowler of that generation. No, nobody, nobody actually remembers that. You
Of
remember
which
Don Bradman because
generation?
he was a run scoring machine.
Jim Laker. Ha.
Jim Laker, yeah.
I'm just okay. Let's go beyond that.
Bro,
Uh,
But
भाई
then
छोड़
we
दे
can't
छोड़
even
दे
go beyond
अरे
Don
भाई
Bradman, right? That's the
bro,
thing.
he's a good quizzer. He's gonna ask some really tricky questions. He's a very good quizzer.
no,
He
no,
sets
like
questions up.
okay, like we know Don Bradman, we know Wally Hammond, and so many other batters who had this sort of Hanif Mohammad from Pakistan. At that
Yeah.
time, in the 1940s, 1950s,
Let's
there
talk
was
about
no bowler
1980s.
from Pakistan that was.
Let's talk about 1980s. That's my favorite era in cricket.
By that time, there were so many fast bowlers that had already come
That's my
in. The
point.
ODI
पहले
format
fast
had
bowling
been
एक चीज
introduced.
नहीं होता था. Like
No, but
fast bowling
I think
developed
in many ways, you're seeing a paradigm shift in terms of the ballers now, because you're seeing there was a lot of complaints where ballers were really not getting their due in cricket. But now I think the ball manufacturers have started to
one
the type
thing,
of
it
balls that
started
are
with
coming
Test
up.
cricket. It started with Test
Yeah, it
cricket,
started
and
with
now
Test
the last
cricket where they came up with a new
6 years.
batch of
Mm,
balls. Now you see Test cricket has become much more exciting.
yeah,
Even I think that's where I mean, for example, the matches that you saw in the current matches that you saw in England right now, where I think it was England South Africa, where you saw that England were able to, the ball that was brought up by Duke, that also had an extra lacquer on it. Those were not the deliveries that were used in England and New Zealand, by the way. That's the reason why Basball worked really well. But when once you saw these balls come in, you saw the ball moving around a lot more, and I think the batsmen are getting exposed
And
to
I
a lot
think
of
that the first
a
thing that you
lot.
should
And we
do
saw this
is,
time around as well.
implement those deliveries in
When
Pakistan, because
there came a
the test
point
matches in
where
Pakistan are absolutely played on roads. So
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I totally
to
support
be honest.
the agreement on the bowlers thing
Yeah,
when the
truly,
matches are
truly.
played on absolutely flat tracks.
Yeah. One thing
but
when India started to bring
the moment the
turning pitches,
balls have become much better, what you're really seeing
I
is how
was in
test matches
total
have become more
agreement.
exciting.
I was in total agreement with India bringing turning tracks, England bringing swinging conditions. You have to stick. What the beauty of Test cricket is, every country you go, you have different conditions. In England, if you're getting green top on day one, you should get turning tracks in India on day one. Doesn't matter what was played in 2003, what was played in 2019, 98.
But then
Turning
again,
tracks में खेलना सीखो यार.
if you want to persist with that, I think that argument should extend towards the boundary dimensions as well.
Yeah,
Every
same
country should have their own. Like they should decide what is the standard boundary size for each
That's
of the
what's
games.
happening. I mean,
If you
that's
can
what's
decide
happening
the
right
pitch, you
now.
can decide the boundaries.
No, that's
No, but
what's happening right now.
I kind of agree with the boundary thing. I mean, I think if you look at any sport, there is something that comes in with the conditions, right? That is inherent to that country.
Yeah.
Like for instance, you'll see in England, for instance, in football, they always say that when the pitch gets wet, it's much more difficult to control the ball, for instance. Or in golf, for instance, they say when the ball gets into the sand, it's much more difficult to hit long shots. I mean, I don't know the exact term, but hit longer shots into the grass, and the grass is much more favored. So these kind of things come into picture. But every sport does have its own set measurements of the ground, and that's what was important. And that's where I feel a range is very important, because you can't have tomorrow grounds coming up with 50 meters just because you want your batsman to
I
hit
totally agree with you on this. My point being that I want to have let ICC hold a meeting, conduct a meeting, and declare a range of probably 10 to 15 at the most. You can have 65 to 80.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I think you
shouldn't
can't.
have-
Yeah, I think I'll agree with this, Sandhya, that you cannot have a specific meter. You can't say it's 60 meters, 75 meters. That's not fair. But maybe a range is definitely needed.
I was just looking right now on the ground size and the ground dimensions in Australia, and even Australia, it's not all equal. For example, if you go to Hobart, it's very small. If you go to somewhere like Adelaide, the straight boundaries are bigger, square boundaries are shorter. If Adelaide is like an oval, it's not even like a complete circle. So it has to do a lot with how the
Right
stadiums
now,
are
I
also
think
structured.
there are very few stadiums which are actually a circle or a round structure.
Yeah, it's
Most
also
of
because
the-
all these stadiums have become multi-purpose stadiums. It's just not cricket which has been played there. Different sports are played. So
Correct.
I think one way I'll agree to it. It's very tough now to change stadiums, but maybe in future, whatever stadiums come, you can maybe give an impetus of laws as to this is what you should be keeping in mind. Maybe a guideline, not rule imposition, because it's impossible to really with a given amount of structure, logistics, stuff to build a ground like that. I like Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is a very good ground. Standard boundaries, decent boundary size on the square, decent in terms of India, because you gave enough time, enough space for that ground. For example, Indore is right in between the city. That's why it's one of the smallest grounds out there.
Yeah,
You have so
and
many
that's
grounds
the
like that.
point, right?
Inaswam
It's
is
the
right in
history
between
of
the
our
city.
game. The history of our game has been such that we've always, there have always been an accommodation that has been made, because I think the whole idea comes from the village grounds where cricket was played, village common grounds, and every village wouldn't be able to give that exact amount of a common ground to their team. So every village in England had a common ground, but because of the sizes of the village, some of the common ground would be smaller than the others, and that's where this kind of trend came, that you can play cricket anywhere. And that's the beauty of the sport as well. I think in many ways that you can play cricket in any space. I mean, if you're from India and you're from those schools, you must have heard of something called the box cricket, and I'm sure other countries have a different version of it. Or and you play the underarm cricket, and you would be able to play that in a box. I think you would be able to play that in a 2x2 meter box with 3 to 4 people. I think there's no other sport in the world that you can do this. So that's where I think you have the beauty.
Yeah, I saw that box
there are
cricket. There was
others,
a news on
but
this.
still, yeah.
There was an,
I
I
understand
think,
the
I think
sentiment.
we've
It's
got,
a very good.
I think we can
episode,
stop
definitely.
this. I think we have an
on-
entire topic to talk about this
Yeah,
for an
yeah,
entire different
definitely.
day. I think we've just gone out of everywhere to talk about this topic.
Context, yeah,
in depth.
definitely.
Yeah, I just think we should get back to it.
Thank
We
you,
can get
Kapil.
back to- Thank you,
We'll
Kapil.
definitely come back to it.
You have sparked the biggest debate in Boomer 11. whether ground sizes, and some people believe ground sizes cannot be big, it should be standardized and every country should have different. But yeah, that's the beauty of it. You can't have same opinion given by the other expert. You can't say,
No,
wow,
but
India
I
is
think all three
excellent.
of us will
You
agree on
need,
the
you need,
fact
you
that
need
we
debate
want
which
a
is coming.
standardized range for the
Yeah,
boundaries.
you need to have different opinions coming. That's what's the beauty of the debate as well. You can't just see another expert sitting and saying, excellent, wow, wow, I totally agree with you. You can't have that. That's the whole point of debate, and that's why people love watching us. That's one of the reasons why we've got a lot of subscribers as well. Yeah, now let's get ahead. Let's talk about India
After
versus
a humble
Bangladesh.
brag, let's get back to.
Yeah, I think with the low-key flex, we'll get into India versus Bangladesh. India versus Bangladesh. Last time around, when these two teams met, it was one run which separated both. और देखा टाइगर्स को
It was
शांत किया
one man
इंडियन
which
टाइगर्स ने.
separated both. It was MS
बांग्लादेश
Dhoni.
टाइगर्स को शांत किया इंडियन टाइगर्स ने. तो यही हुआ था. MS धोनी टाइगर जैसा दौड़ के स्टंप को
I
स्टंप
think
को
we have
उड़ाया.
suddenly transformed ourselves from Boomer 11 to some other channel for a 5-second break there.
Yes, guys,
Yeah.
we'll just get
No,
back.
but I think right now with the current team that India has right now, I don't think the wicketkeeper, be it Rishabh Pant or Dinesh Karthik, they can pull off a Dhoni-esque sort of a last ball run out. So I think this time around India will
Bro,
like to keep a
to be very
safe
honest, if
cushion
you're
and win
going there,
by
we're losing
30,
that.
40 runs.
It is not going to happen every day. If you're going 2 of 3, you're losing it. It's not happening.
No, first of all, it is not going to happen every day. Second of all, we are not going to see this transition Bangladesh side
Yeah.
put up a stiff competition against India.
That's what
Because
we'll
I think
get to that now.
2016.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about that because same thing in 2016, the match was played in Chinnaswamy, smaller grounds, easier for both the teams. It becomes like an even playing ground, when you're playing in a smaller ground
Also
with a
talk
team
about the
who's
Bangladeshi team at
comparatively
that
weaker.
point. I think
But
they had
yeah,
Mustafizur
I
Rahim, they
understand.
had
That was the peak
Mohammedullah, they had
Bangladesh.
Shakib Al Hasan, Tamim
That was
Iqbal.
the peak Bangladesh. Mustafizur
Yeah.
Rahman was in his peak. Absolutely, we had no idea how to play him. India went to Bangladesh, lost the series. Then he came to India. He was really troubling Shikhar Dhawan and Rohit Sharma. Everybody. I
And
remember
not
Rohit
just
Sharma
that,
getting
I
out.
think the pitch was actually helping the spinners as well.
Yeah,
So I think
India,
it was
India has put 150, if I'm not wrong, close to
148,
150.
yeah, somewhere 148,
148, 150. And it was not an easy game. To be honest, the pitch was doing quite a bit for spinners. The ball was sticking around. But tomorrow's game is played in totally different conditions. Rain around Adelaide a lot. Not sure if you're going to get a full game as well. So fingers are crossed that we may get a full game, and we really hope that we get a full game in Adelaide. Or it's going to be absolute party poppers there, and you don't want that kind of stuff. Party poppers is something of rain. Rain should not be a spoil sport, and India doesn't want that to be, because India have already lost points when it comes to South African game. Your thoughts, Sandeepani, on this game tomorrow? Because it's not the best of Bangladesh team. They can be troubled against quality pace. Mohammad Shami, Bhuvanesh, Ashdeep, the opening spell is going to be so crucial, isn't it?
See, I think if we are lucky enough to have a full game, I think India is going to convincingly defeat Bangladesh. And I think Bangladesh, with all due respect to Bangladesh, they won 2 games in the 3 matches that they have played, or probably 4 matches they have played. The 3 matches that they have played in this tournament, they have won 2 games, but those wins have come against Zimbabwe and Netherlands, and both the wins were very scratchy wins. They won by 9 runs against Netherlands. They won by 3 runs against Zimbabwe, 4 or 3 runs against Zimbabwe, and both the games went down to the wire. There are lots of departments where Bangladesh are actually lagging. There has been no batsman that has actually showed up and taken the.
Tell me about this comment. How do you rate this comment by Shakib today? Because Shakib said India are here to win the World Cup and we are not, and it'll be an upset if we defeat India tomorrow, and that's something which we are looking at.
I mean, to be very fair,
This is
I think that's
very surprising. Not actually. This is
yeah.
surprising.
I think that is something that an expert. That is something an expert in a AC box should say. That's not what a captain.
I think
of a
that
cricket
coming from the Bangladesh.
the moment you say that,
tells you the thing of the energy in the team right now, because they are under confident. They don't feel like they can go in and beat this Indian side. And I think that the comment from Shakib, a lot has to do with how they have fared till now. And this is the Bangladesh. This team is in transition, and I totally agree with you. Even if you believe that you don't have the team to go out there and beat a team like India, this is something that you can't go into a press conference and say that we are not here to win.
Are you mentally already accepting defeat, or are you saying that you are not
that
good
is
enough to
such
win the
a
semi-final?
and I mean, this is sport. I mean, it's not like your team is Bangladesh is a full member nation, And it's
Yeah.
so surprising that the captain, the skipper of the team, is saying that, because the moment you say that, then the players are like, okay, if you drop a catch, you will be like, oh, SAP, we're not here to win. Or if
It's
you
fine.
don't score that one run, you don't want to throw yourself on the field and do
To be
well. You
honest,
just
tell me this: there is
See,
no team in the World
honestly,
Cup
I
who's
would
not there
have
to win the
taken the
World Cup.
2016 sort of a Bangladesh who were so aggressive against all their opponents. They can go out, troll people, and they'll still go and lose by a huge margin. But
Yeah.
this is not acceptable, because I
yeah.
personally, I love when players have that sort of aggression in the field, on the field at least. You have to show some sort of aggression. All the banter on the field, I think it is great. When you're off the field, you can be very cordial with each other. You can hug, you can talk, you can smile, you can do whatever you want. But when you're on the field, you should have that energy, or that belief that you can beat any team in the world. Otherwise, what's the point of playing if you don't have the belief to beat the number one team in the world right now? I mean, it's pointless.
Absolutely. Something which really shook me. I was like, are you sure this came from Shakib Al Hasan? And I really had to cross verify that, and it was actually true. Your thoughts, Jaren? Because on the other hand, when it comes to India, the press conference was done by Rahul Dravid. And one thing which we saw in the press conference, journalists did try to nudge Rahul Dravid to say KL Rahul could drop Karlo. But then Rahul Dravid just kept on saying that we are not going to drop KL Rahul. And today in the Nets, a very impressive footage has come out that Virat Kohli was spending at least 1 hour with KL Rahul, trying to talk about his game, trying to tell how to play the short pitch bowling, trying to tell him on technique, was telling to Vikram Rathore as to how to do the throwdowns. How do you see that being changed, and how is it going to really positively impact KL Rahul in tomorrow's game? Because KL Rahul has been a topic of discussion throughout our lives, even before World Cup.
I think before I get into that matter, I think this shows the kind of comparison between the two camps and what they're feeling. On one hand, you see the captain throwing his hat in the ring and saying, "We're not here to win," and on the other hand, the team that is probably doing really well is trying to even make itself better. This is not me saying that Bangladesh is better or India is better. It's just a mentality here. I understand where Shakib is coming from. I think he's trying to put his team off pressure. But there's one difference between trying to put that pressure out of the
You can
team
see,
and
was he trying to play
trying
a
to just
underdog card
trying to
there?
even yeah, I mean, like for MS Dhoni, for instance, is a very cool captain, right? He's someone who doesn't like that pressure in the dressing room, but you never hear him say that. You'll always hear him say that we are here to enjoy our cricket and we'll try our best, or we'll try to do what is controllable. And in sport, there is always one thing that you see on paper, and there's always one thing that you see in the pitch. Even Craig Irvine or or
Let's talk about
Andrew
Sikandar
Balboni,
Raza, right?
or
Sikandar Raza was
yeah,
asked in the
Sikandar
press
Raza,
conference.
Andrew Balboni, Craig
Correct.
Irvine, all of these
Remember
players
the
come in with
remember the press conference question after Pakistan match, which was asked, when did you believe you can win the match against Pakistan? He was like, before the first ball was balled. And
yeah,
that
and
was
that's why you
just
have to get into
amazing.
the team. I mean, I understand if you're
And I
an
think that is
expert,
something that you should
you're
have.
sitting in the
That is
dugout.
something that you absolutely should have in you to
Yeah, I
go
mean,
out and
I
say
can
that.
understand you measure the challenge that India is going to raise. I can understand that it's not going to be an easy game, but that is not a comment that Shakib Al Hasan should make wearing the cap of a Bangladeshi skipper, because it's not only the betrayal of your team, it's also the betrayal of your fans who are there to watch you. And Bangladeshi fans are the most passionate fans in the world. I mean, if I was a fan, if Indian captain said that, I would not watch the match. I mean, I wouldn't care less. Because saying, why am I there to watch the match? I mean, why should I spend that 3 hours of my life to see a
But
team
then
which
again,
is
I totally agree with what you said. The first, like Shakib Al Hasan probably wanted the team to be completely like out of pressure. He wanted the team to do well and not think about the result. But the
But I
way
think the
it
words
came
he
out, I
chose
think
were
it was
just
wrong.
poor. Yeah, the
Yeah,
words
the way it
maybe he
came out,
wanted to say,
it should not
the
come out
pressure
like
is
that.
on India because they have the chance to win the World Cup much more than us, or people don't expect us to win, and that's the reason why we are the underdogs, and that's maybe what he wanted to convey. But the words that he chose, I just feel those are demoralizing words. Maybe I hope his team understands that
I don't
he
know.
still wants his team to
Bangladesh is
win.
still in with a chance to qualify semi-final. Making a statement like that just before that is just, it's kind of
Yeah,
nonsensical for me, and does not make any sense for a team who's there in the World Cup, who has done well in the World Cup, done well in multi-nation tournaments over the last 6 or 7
correct. Yeah.
years. They made it to a Champions Trophy semi-final. They made it to Asia Cups finals consecutively, and you know what they bring to the table as well. For them to throw their hat straight before the big game like that, I
And
understand.
also they are on same points along with India. They are also on 4 points out after 3 games. India are also on 4 points after 3 games. So if Bangladesh went on to defeat India tomorrow, or goes on to defeat India tomorrow, they are probably in, not just in with a chance, they are probably through. They'll probably be very very comfortably through to the semi-finals. But saying something before a game where both the teams are on the same level, on points table at least. I mean, I understand the net run rate. I understand the two wins have come against Zimbabwe and Netherlands, whereas India have already played South Africa and Pakistan. But still, you have to have the belief to sort of go out there and beat. Because they also have a game against Pakistan, and with the form that Pakistan has been showing right now, anything could have happened. I mean, anything can happen still. So
Truly,
you
I
still
still
have
I
to
must
hold
agree
your
with
head high. If you don't
absolutely.
respect yourself, how do you expect the entire team or the entire nation to follow you and respect you?
Absolutely. Sean says Bangladesh era from 2015, 2019 was a vibe. 2019 was a vibe. Absolutely, I agree with you totally. And it was
I
an
think
era which,
Bangladesh era from 2007 to 2017-18 was a vibe.
yeah, especially from 2015, that's when they really got off. England
I
quarterfinal
think they
defeat.
had their rise really started from round seven onwards when they started challenging the bigger teams.
Yeah.
Beating India was a big
You know
plus
what?
for them.
They were never
And
a
at
big
least in
team.
Asia, they really were competing. But I understand in Australia, it's not Bangladesh's home turf, but they're having some of the most horrendous years in the
It's a
past few
transition
years
era.
haven't been easy on them.
It's a
Yeah,
transition
and,
era.
and some of the bigger teams, I think their management and the players have also had a lot of spats. But let's talk about KL Rahul as you mentioned. KL Rahul hasn't had the best of tournaments because I think right now in terms of the three matches that India have played, Ravi Ashwin has a better average and a strike rate than KL Rahul, and that just shows how bad it is. I mean, Ashwin has scored 8 runs, I think, and he has an average of 8, a strike rate of 66. Well, if KL Rahul has a strike rate of with
KL
64, if
Rahul
I'm
has
not
scored less
wrong.
than 8 runs in this tournament.
No, he scored runs. He's scored runs more
I
often
mean,
than
I
not, but
think
he's been
Jaren is
dismissed
talking
more,
about the
right?
average.
I'm
Okay,
talking about the average.
I don't care about the average, but then let's just leave KL
You
Rahul
have
alone.
to care about the
So I
average
think
But
when
to
I
be
think
very
one
if
of
honest,
KL
them is
Rahul
your
has to
opening
get
batsman,
into
right?
form, I think the
You
two
have to
games
talk
that
about
India
you have to
played
talk about
against,
average when one of them is your opening batsman. Unfortunately,
to be
so.
very honest, at this point, I just hope KL
But
Rahul scores.
I really like this approach from the Indian management, because it's important that you give that kind of confidence to the team. Because I mean, I would say that it's time for Rishabh Pant to try Rishabh Pant. That's my personal opinion. But if you drop KL Rahul from here, it is going to shatter his confidence even more. And if he makes a comeback, it's the victory of the management and the coaches, and that's why
and I think
that is
his
a
Absolutely.
different
best
drive.
chances
That
of
is
making
where
a
I
comeback
feel.
is against Bangladesh and Zimbabwe. Probably more against Bangladesh because he
Yeah,
would love
yeah,
to
and
play the simmers over there in Bangladesh. I think he'll again struggle against Zimbabwe a bit as well. He might as well struggle against Zimbabwe, but I think the best team that he can get on form with is with the current Bangladeshi team,
Not
and I
just
think
that, to be honest, before semi-final, if you're going to semi-final, you need one of your opening batters firing. And today I told you, as Virat Kohli was spending 1 hour with him talking about technique. That's something very good, to be honest. Virat Kohli will know any better than anybody as to how much he had to go through in the last couple of years, how he had to
yeah.
come out of it. He had technical issues in 2014. So no better batter than Virat Kohli to spend time with him and to tell him that it's all about a mental block. Just play yourself out. And we've been talking about KL Rahul for way too long period of time to say that KL Rahul will just be yourself. At this point, I really hope he does, and he's way better talent not to be scoring runs in World Cup. I really hope this was the World Cup he owns himself. I think there's still close to 4 games left if you're going to go to the final, and you can be
And
a star if you're going to
I
score in
mean,
semi-final and final. You're going to be a star in India for sure.
correct. Even the three matches of India have played might as well not matter if KL Rahul goes on to play well. I mean, if KL Rahul is your winner, is the player who makes you, I mean, wins you the finals and the semi-finals. As you mentioned, or even probably the next 2 matches for India, Indians will respect that. And players
everybody
people who
talks
love
about
sports will
Dhoni's
understand
innings in
that.
the World Cup final of 2011.
Yeah,
Dhoni has had the worst of World Cups in
Worst, yeah.
2011.
correct.
He was not good.
Exactly,
Absolutely,
exactly.
absolutely.
Same with
But you know what?
Gambhir.
I
He
Yeah,
really
had
want
good
Rohit
innings in
Sharma
the
to
World
fire
Cup
in the
final.
final. Rohit Sharma has always fired in the big finals. IPL finals, he's always fired. He'll always have very average IPL, and the final he'll fire. Even in 2020, he had a very poor IPL. He came in the final, he came and fired. 2015 in the final, he fired.
But I
2017 in the
think
final, he
that
fired.
this Indian team will have to really get off to a good start when it comes to the knockout games because that is where they have really struggled in the ICC tournaments. I think
Yeah.
the game against Bangladesh and Zimbabwe should be a simple enough job
You know what's
for
going to
them
really
to sort
help?
of
I mean,
tackle.
if Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul fires, then you have a solid top four. Then you have a Hardik
yeah.
Pandya who can
Definitely.
really win you games X Factor. I'm not
I
expecting
mean,
consistency from
still
Hardik
right
Pandya.
now, I think all the top four of this Indian team, KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, and Surya Kumar Yadav, are in the top 20 of the ICC T20 World Batting
Absolutely.
Rankings.
I see. I told you. I really
Yeah,
don't care about the
but
rankings.
then again, yeah, I
Unless
know
you
you
want to
don't believe it,
flex,
but
unless you want to flex your ICC rankings and your player of the month by putting it on the collar and showing it to the world that you are the player of the month. You know who did it. So unless you want to flex that, uh, a certain player did it. If you know, you know. So talking about that, I really don't care about rankings. But to be honest, if your players are in form, if you want to really fire, because you know what KL Rahul can do. He has not scored international runs just for fun. He's not scored centuries in England, Australia, South Africa, not by playing stupid cricket. He's played very good cricket. He's got the talent. He's one of the most talented
USA.
batters out there. Yeah. And I think it's time for him to fire, to be very honest. Something which we've been talking for way too long a period of time. Talking about that, Jaren, how do you
No,
see
I
this
think the point
combination?
with KL Rahul has been he has been firing in the wrong games. He has been fighting in games against some of the weaker nations,
I
or
don't
probably
care
in
now if
the
he
one of
fights
the
in
Yeah, but I
weaker
mean,
or
if
not.
you guys
I
remember,
want
it
him
was
to
a
fire.
decider when KL Rahul scored his first century in England. I think it was against that England team, which is looking really good, where Rishabh Pant
When
and
was
KL
this?
Rahul came together. I mean,
Oh,
when
yeah, yeah.
it was a
I remember that. Yeah,
test match,
correct.
not only
yeah,
the
but
It
they
was,
one
did
it
one
was
not
not
day.
win it,
decided.
right?
India had lost the series by
But
then.
that
Yeah,
match,
India
I
lost.
felt on the high.
India lost that game as well because
Yeah, it was
both
India
Rishabh
India
Pant
did,
and KL
versus
India
Rahul got
did,
India.
out at
but
the
I
wrong
mean, the
time.
To be
kind of
honest,
pressure that the two of them came
no,
under,
no, no, no.
India
I'll tell you
were
one thing.
really,
That
really.
game was a game which India had no pressure because India had lost the series by then.
India
It
had
was one
lost the
last
series.
session.
There was no expectation from India of
Yeah,
doing anything else. I mean,
they were
losing that
five
game,
for
game
three.
as well.
They were 5 for 3 that match. I remember that. And Stuart Broad came and picked up Virat Kohli for a duck, and I thought India were going to get balled out below 100. And Rishabh Pant and KL Rahul came and played that. It just gave Indians hope. Oh my God, what if they chase it down? But that was really good. See, what the thing over there was KL Rahul batted with intent, something which KL
That's my
Rahul is
point.
not doing these days.
So my point being, I think that's my point being, KL Rahul's got it in him. He has it in him. He's just a mental block, really, as we spoke about it. And once he's able to get over that mental block, I think this player will be fearless. And every player, I think, in his career, there's that stage, or there's that one thing that he finds out that he has to really overcome. Virat Kohli found out that outside off stump, line that he was ball at, or
No, I still
and
feel I don't know
you
what is
have
your
all these
thoughts
kind of things
on
that
all
come in
this.
international cricketers'
KL
lives,
Rahul is
but
still a better batter at number 5 and number 4 for Team India because you know why? Because I'm an RCB fan. I've seen KL Rahul at number 4. He was excellent there. For Team India, that 100 which he scored against West Indies, which is still considered to be one of the best hundreds by a player in overseas conditions against a very top playing nation. I think that was one of the best hundreds I've seen of KL Rahul as well.
But I
See,
think
that is
in
also
T20s, I think opening is the spot for KL Rahul because at
no,
that
no, no,
time,
no. He came
when
at
when
number
he
4
scored
that
that
day.
century against West Indies, in I think it was in USA only where
USA,
India
Florida.
failed to
Tough
chase
conditions
241.
against a tough opposition. Bravo was there.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah, I totally get it. But at that point, India did not have a number 4 batter. But right now, they have a stable number 3, number 4 batter. I don't want to see any changes in India's number 3 to 5.
no.
Virat Kohli, Surya Kumar Yadav,
No,
and
I
Hardik Pandya
understand
should
that.
be fixed in
See,
that spot.
even in Test cricket, I feel KL Rahul is better suited in the middle order than maybe in Test cricket. I agree he's done well as an opener in the last 1 year, but in One Day cricket, you saw how he has been doing very
Yeah,
consistently as a
one day
number
cricket, he's
number
a
5.
middle order batter for India in
Yes,
one day cricket.
that's my point. He has got the ability to change the match. Look at his strike rate in One Day cricket. He's batting at a strike rate of 140, coming in number 5.
yeah, but I mean,
Can
if you
you do
look at
what?
one
I
day
think
cricket,
he
I think
promoted himself
if you're a
up the
middle
order
order
to
batsman in number,
Zimbabwe in
if you're a
ODIs
middle
just
order
to get
batsman in
some
one
match
day
time.
cricket, if you're batting at number 4, number 5 in one day cricket, you're basically an opener in a T20 match because you're getting exactly 20 deliveries on your
To be
best day.
honest, no man. I think KL
Yeah,
Rahul
man.
thinks there's something else. KL
Yeah,
Rahul,
man.
you see, there are players who will go like that, but with KL Rahul, the thing is, it's a mental block. He finds
It
it
is.
that
It
he should
is.
be doing. He's confused as to how he should be playing as an opener. But when he comes
Yeah,
to
I
Monday
think
cricket in
it's
the
it's
middle
it's
of
all about him trying to not force the issue, but at the
yes,
same time trying to maintain his
you know
strike
why
rate
I
because
like
he's
KL
caught in
Rahul in
two
the middle
minds.
order. Many people might not agree with me, but KL Rahul's clarity of thought is very clear when he comes in the middle order, which is not the case in one day in T20 when he's opening because he wants to find a balance between attacking and to playing a defensive game by saying that I should play the first 10 overs, I'll let the ball stop moving, then I'll take the attack on. But when it comes to him coming in the middle order, his thoughts are very clear. He knows what to do. He knows I'll attack the spinners, I'll attack the pacers, I have to bat at this strike rate, which makes him a much potent attacking player, and which I think he's very capable of, which is done in T20 cricket. And for RCB, he did that brilliantly. In that 2016 season, we all talk about Virat Kohli, but why RCB went to final was him batting at number 4 was so important. There were games he used to come score quick 540, quick 530, which was so important. And I thought that's something which he has got. He's got shots all across the ground. and which we can try. It's not a bad option. If we are, I'm saying that KL Rahul is better suited in terms of clarity of thought, batting in middle order, because something which we are saying KL Rahul is not a technical issue; it's a mental block. Maybe that's my thought. Everybody has a different thought. Maybe Jen, your thought is also. We see for Butler, for example, bats middle order in one-day cricket and bats opening in T20 cricket. But Butler's clarity of thought is very clear. He wants to go attack and he does that. If KL Rao's clarity of thought is so clear and if he has that kind of mental courage to do it, well and good. But he's not having. That's my whole point. Why I'm saying that
I
he's
mean,
better suited batting in middle order.
I will disagree with you in one part. I think I will go with the mass, so as to speak. I think KL Rahul is a very good opener, but for me, I feel that the KL Rahul, the scariest version of KL Rahul is where he has the clarity of thought to go after the bowling, just like Butler does. I mean, what Butler? I mean, you remember KL Rahul? Some of the best innings in some of those matches where you see is where he just comes in and is free and he completely goes after the bowling. For example, that 90 odd runs he scored against CSK, he did not stop from the ball one. I mean, Deepak Chahar was swinging the ball quite a bit in that match, but he did not worry about it. He did not worry about it because he had batters to come and play.
Which innings was
Where he
this?
really started. I think it was KL Rahul's first season as a captain, if I'm not wrong, or was it Ashwin's captaincy? I think it was Ashwin's
You're
captaincy.
talking about the game
Yeah,
where he was taking in Delhi Capitals, right? Where he scored the fastest 50 or something.
no, I think it was in the same season.
No, I think
Yeah.
he's
But
talking
it was a
about the
different
game
match. It was
where
against
it was an inconsequential game for both.
Yeah,
CSK
it
has
was
Are you
a
won
talking about
31 runs.
CSK versus Punjab in
Punjab Kings.
2021? See, KL
Yeah.
Rahul in
yeah.
inconsequential game is a different beast. I'm
Yeah, but
telling
that's
you.
the point, right? Why is he so? Why is he so? Why is
See,
he
that
so?
is my
Why
point
doesn't he have an
again.
issue in an inconsequential game? Is because of that mental
That is
block.
my
The moment
point.
he has,
Clarity of thought is very clear for
yeah,
him.
yeah. My point being the same, right? My point being the same. That once he sets himself to see that, okay, fine. If I lose my wicket here, it's not going to affect my chances in the team as much, or it's not going to affect my team's chance. That's when he goes after the bowling, and that's the thing that I think he needs to start believing now itself. Because to be very honest, in this Indian team, if he goes anyway, he is getting out, and India is still winning matches. So he might as well just come in with that intensity. Okay, fine. If I'm getting out, I'm getting out. I'm not gonna go out. I'm not gonna go out defending. I'm not gonna go out my
Thank you,
bad
Priyanka,
hang.
for that. I mean, it's just a debate, and I don't think it's like
No,
just talking about it. But
I'll still side with Jaren. I think that
no,
KL
it's
Rahul
good.
should. Yeah, KL Rahul should open the batting for you. I totally understand Abel's point as well that he's a beast in inconsequential games. But I think I would also partially
He's
agree with Abel as well
yeah.
because
I mean,
he
it's
mentioned that
you
point. It
both
is a
made
Yeah, I
mental.
great
mean,
points.
why is he so up? Why is he so good in inconsequential games? Because he knows if it's Netherlands, he knows if he gets out, Virat Kohli will bat. I mean, or Surya
See,
Kumar Yadav
that's
will
my
bat.
But
I
I
have no
don't
but
issues with
understand
getting
what
out.
is
but
the issue
Darren,
right
he
now.
should have that belief in games against Pakistan as well. That if he
But
gets out,
that's
there
the
is
point,
Virat
right?
Kohli will
That's
come
why
in
I
and
think
score the
that is
run.
probably the key to his. That is probably the key
That is,
I
to
think
his.
that
you
is
know
what
how he has
Abel is
got
trying to
out
mention
against
that he's having
Pakistan.
that mental
Did
block
you
that
see
he's
the way
not
in which
getting
he's
it
got
out.
out against Pakistan? He's put the bat behind his pad, which means he's played nothing short. He's played a shot
Yeah,
which doesn't really
yeah.
help him to get going. So that
So
is totally going
and
talking
what
about
would
his
you
confidence.
want? What would you? I would rather have if KL Rahul was to smash a ball, and even if it gets a top edge, goes 10-20 meters high in the air. I mean, it goes way high in the air and it comes down to the wicket keeper. I have no issue. It's the fact that he's hanging his bat out there, and that's my point, right? The moment he believes in himself that he can go after the bowling, it doesn't matter.
I'll
My
tell you
my
something.
wicket doesn't matter as much as my scoring.
Something which
That's
I
when KL
like to
Rahul is
address
there.
as well, something which is very important in sports, which a lot of people don't understand. When you have a mental, I'm not mental block. What I mean by mental block is when you are anxious, when you feel that you are under pressure, your body tend to react very slow. Something which I'm seeing with KL
Mhm.
Rahul as well. When you take pressure, your body will react slow. Something which I'm seeing of Rohit Sharma as well for the first time ever in his career. We always talk about Rohit Sharma having that split second to hit a ball. That's not the thing in this World Cup. I'm seeing, which just shocked me. If you've noticed Rohit Sharma in this World Cup, he's finding it. I don't know if it's because of the captaincy leading India in the World Cup, pressure of 1 billion people to win a World Cup after
And you
eight
know what
long,
Saurav Ganguly used to
long,
say, right?
long
Once
years.
you become an
So it's
Indian
shown.
captain,
It's very.
he
It's
used to
shown in
say
Rohit
this.
Sharma.
It's this anecdote from Saurav Ganguly, right? Once you become the Indian captain, you start having grey hairs. You saw that
Yeah.
on MS Dhoni.
I
You
think it
saw
was.
that on Virat Kohli.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
Rohit Sharma's fault.
It's something which really baffled me was Rohit Sharma is a player who has got an extra bit of second to play a ball, which he looks much more comfortable. He's become
Yeah.
very slow on the ball. Something which I'll relate with KL Rahul as well. When you take a lot of pressure in your body, when you take a lot of that kind of a, when you go in with that kind of a mental process where you feel that you're taking a lot of pressure, you are a little scared, tentative, then your body tends to act slowly as well. You can't have the same reaction time. Same thing is happening with KL Rahul. He's not conveying the message to his brain that, see, I want to do it. It's your brain is going to react slowly to that, and the message is going to go out to your body is going to be the exact same, which is the reason why it's a neuro issue which is happening with KL Rahul at this point. It has to do a lot of neuro sports science, which is a very common thing in sports. I've seen with footballers as well. The body tends to react a lot more slow under pressure. In big games, your body tend to be not responding to what you really want to do, because inside your body you're taking a lot more pressure. Something which KL Rahul
Yeah, I
should
mean,
figure it out.
and your focus, I think, tends to be on what might go wrong rather than what you
Yeah,
should do. That's something you speak when you, for example, it's one of the advices that you give to the younger ballers, right? It's not, you don't think where you shouldn't ball, you think where you should ball, and your body reacts. And I think somewhere maybe KL Rahul is stepping into bat thinking how he's going to get out rather than how he's going to score.
truly, and that's something which we have discussed as well. But so, something which Nabil has asked is your thoughts on playing combination tomorrow. Your thoughts, on the money.
Yeah, I think India should stick to the same 11 that took the field against South Africa if
So
Dinesh
Deepak
Karthik is
Huda,
fit. Yeah, I think play Deepak Huda because if you trust in Deepak Huda to do a job for you against South Africa in that sort of a pitch, he is definitely suited to do a better job against Bangladesh, and especially because he will not play in a pitch that would have assisted somebody like Akshar Patel. We are not playing in Perth anymore, so I think India should stick to the same 11 given Dinesh Karthik is fit. If Dinesh Karthik is injured, probably bring in Rishabh Pant for one game, but don't tinker with your 11. Have
true.
Deepak Huda in your
I
team.
would,
Have
I would,
Ashwin in your team.
I would disagree. I think Akshay Patel was dropped. Shouldn't have been dropped. At least I expect. I understand still why in Perth tomorrow in Adelaide. I really expect Akshay Patel to play. Um, if not Akshay Patel, I would go with Akshay Patel on the other hand. I don't think, for me, I feel Deepak Huda has a long way to go in terms of batting in Australia, and India hasn't been using him as a predominant spinner at least. And even if you are using his bowling, I would still say, for me, the selling point of Deepak Huda is his batting. If he can bat, he can be that top order dasher for you. But India doesn't have any space on the top order at least, and then he'll come and bat at the 15th, 16th over. I really don't see Deepak Huda being as effective there, especially in Australian conditions. I think Akshay Patel might still give you a bit more value for money, not value for money, but at least give you a lot more value with the ball when it comes to when it comes to the bowling. And I think Adelaide, you would expect it to spin a little bit more than it would have in Perth.
That's a very good point there. Your thoughts on the money, because
But I'll
especially
but
Patel.
but I'll still stick to Deepak Huda for tomorrow's game because yeah, I totally
Also, I
agree
mean,
with you on the point
just
that
to
Deepak Huda is
put
not a
one more
finisher.
edge, Deepak, when you play Ashwin and Akshay Patel, it's two different kinds of spinners. Ballers are going to turn in two different ways, which is going to help India. Deepak Huda might spin the ball in the same direction, so
But
it's
Rohit
not
Sharma
going
is
to help
anyway
that
not
much.
giving Deepak Huda the chance with the
Yeah,
ball,
and
and if
precisely.
Dinesh
I mean,
Karthik is
if
not
that's the
fit,
case, then you really don't need to play him. I really feel then you
no,
really don't
I
need to
would
play
play
him.
him because if Dinesh Karthik is not fit, probably Rishabh Pant will come in place of Dinesh Karthik and not in place of Akshar Patel. So for tomorrow's game, I would definitely play. I would stick to the playing 11 because I think once we get to the semi-final stage, we can't really experiment. We have two more games. Not really experiment since they have already opted for Deepak Huda in the game against South Africa. So I think they are going to stick to him in the game against Bangladesh. But the selection committee has been a bit unpredictable in recent times. They have taken
Yeah.
some harsh calls or probably some tactical decisions as well, which was not the case of this Indian team in the past. In the last 3-4 months or so, they have made some bold calls, and yeah, they might as well go back to Akshay Patel for tomorrow's game. But I would prefer to have the same 11.
Your thoughts, Jaren, because someone like Rishabh Pant may be the right time to blood him into 11 and see how he goes in the World Cup. He can maybe be a matchup against Shakib to tell him to go attack Shakib. And we're not sure about DK's fitness completely. We believe he'll take the field, but still, I'll say that it's not a bad option to try out someone like a Rishabh Pant and tell him to just go and take the attack. And also with Mustafiz, I know one of the best players who have played Mustafiz in IPL has been Rishabh Pant. The ball will come into him if at all he's trying to ball the cutters. And when you have a right hand left hand combination, it can really disrupt the bowler's lengths as well.
Yeah, I
Something
mean,
which we have
I
really
meant
missed.
Rishabh Pant in place of Dinesh Karthik, and then you keep the same 10 that you had for the South African game. I definitely want to see Rishabh Pant play tomorrow
Then with
and
me,
in the game against Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I would like to see Rishabh Pant. To be honest, at this point, I really want to see Rishabh Pant playing as well because I believe he's got something in him which he can do it on the big day. When you talk about the players, we
Because
talk
the
about the
thing is, if
mental
you
block.
trust Hardik Pandya to give you 4 overs with the ball and not go with Deepak Huda,
I still trust Hardik Pandya coming in at number 4, at number
he-
6, which you have played him in Pakistan game, South Africa
yeah,
game, you have played him at number 6. So Rishabh Pant coming at 5 only makes sense for me.
Rishabh Pant
And
coming in
then
at number 5 with the bat is okay, but I'm talking if you want to have faith in Hardik Pandya that he can continue bowling 4 overs for you in all sort of situations in all the
yeah,
games,
totally.
all the remainder
But to
of the
be honest,
games.
you know what's
Well,
Money?
then, I mean, so here's my opinion on this, right? I think from what I understand about Dinesh Karthik's fitness, it's I mean, as we saw in the match also, I think this is one delivery where I think it was Bhuvneshwar Kumar who was bowling, or I think it was
It is
Arshdeep who was
hand as
bowling
well.
rather. It was Arshdeep who was bowling, right? He bowled a bouncer in the top edge. He tried to collect the
Yeah,
ball,
it got
and he
sprained
fell
or
on his
something.
bottom. I think that's where he got hurt. So I
He,
think
he got
as far
bad
as we know, we'll only come to know it today morning. What is the actual situation with Dinesh Karthik's fitness? Whether
No,
India
I'll give you
wants
an
to
update.
risk
I'll
it.
just give you an update from whatever we got from the training visuals is that he was training completely. He was keeping wickets
Yeah,
for
yeah,
quite
yeah,
a
correct.
longer period
Yes.
of time. So it's a big tick
Hmm.
mark on that. His fitness is good, or else he won't be able to bat or even to do keep wickets. So that's a
Yeah.
big tick mark. But when it comes to just on the matchup and on form, Dinesh Karthik was struggling. Let's be very honest. Dinesh Karthik was struggling throughout, and something which he has had issues throughout. Throughout every big tournament or in conditions which have been alien, he finds it difficult to tackle. He has got some technical deficiencies, and this, especially in this World Cup, you need batters who are slightly technically proficient than batters who can really come out there and slog. That's only
Hmm.
for this
Yeah.
World Cup. If it was in some other World Cup in some other country, I would have said, okay, fine. I would have gone with Dinesh Karthik. But this World Cup, more and more, as we're getting ahead, we are seeing that batters who are technically sound are able to excel a lot more. Something which Rishabh Pant has got. Rishabh Pant is one of the best players of short pitch bowling out there. He's got a great pull
Yeah, I
shot. He's
mean,
got a great
but
cut
the
shot.
issue with Rishabh Pant has been the fact that he hasn't been the same fluid batsman
See,
in the
that's why
middle
I'm
order
saying this
as he
World
has
Cup
been.
can be different for
So we
him.
need to see if that happens this time around, because also the issue being, he can't come above Suryakumar Yadav by any means. He's going to come after. He's going to come
Him
down
at
after
5 will
Virat
make a
Kohli and
lot of
Suryakumar
sense for
Yadav.
me. Him at 5 will be a perfect batting
Yeah, I think
combination.
he has to come in number 5. He cannot come after that, and he must come before the 13th over. I feel after that he really starts
It's okay even if he comes after
struggling to
5th,
get
13 overs.
going.
Just tell him to go and go swing your bat. What Dinesh Karthik will do the same thing. Give us at least, if he can give you at least 10 runs more than Dinesh Karthik was what he's already given. I'm not making judgments on Dinesh Karthik, but I'm just talking on technical point of view. If you have followed
Also, I
Dinesh
think
Karthik from
India's keeping probably will be
keeping is
improved. We
very
saw Dinesh
important.
Karthik struggle
On a big day, you can't afford to drop a
more than his
stumping.
batting. What I'm really worried about Dinesh Karthik is his keeping technique in Australia, because
Yeah.
I felt like he was not able to counter the bounce on that pitch against Ashwin. I think it was who made the mistakes, and so that's where especially Ashwin is very good at getting that bounce off the pitch because of his tall figure. So that's where I think Rishabh Pant will be a little bit more better in terms of keeping, but. I would say, at least in tomorrow's match, if you're not 100% sure about Dinesh Karthik's fitness, you must try Rishabh Pant out, because you don't want to risk an injury to Dinesh Karthik, because you want to be
See,
able to
I'll,
choose between
I'll
Dinesh Karthik and Rishabh Pant. You don't want to be forced into making that decision. Having said that, I think that's much more of an
First
easier
of all,
call
I think
than.
Dinesh Karthik should be rested for 2 games. For the next 2 games, I agree with Jerin on that point. But I would rather have if Deepak Huda is not bowling for me, and if by the captaincy that we have seen Rohit Sharma captaining, giving Hardik Pandya 4 overs and trusting his bowlers to complete their quota of 4 overs, then I would rather prefer both Dinesh Karthik and Rishabh Pant play in the semifinals, and I would rather have Rishabh Pant in place of Deepak Huda. Because if you're trusting Hardik Pandya with 4 overs, they are not going with
You
any
know
other
what?
bowler
You
for
will
the
need a
six
six
over.
baller at some stage, and I'm not ready to
Yeah,
take that.
Then
exactly.
you
And
can have
I feel,
Kohli
Hardik
rolling
Pandya
his
being your fifth
arms
bowler,
over.
No,
we've
no.
tried that.
You know
We've
what has
tried that in
worked for
UAE.
you? Just let it work. The
Yeah,
moment you try to change it, backfire.
when we tried Hardik Pandya as the number five bowling option, he didn't actually give goods. That's one issue with him. Secondly, I feel India would not
And let me
want
tell
to
you one
force
thing.
Hardik
Let me
Pandya as
let me
much.
tell you all guys one thing. Hardik Pandya, same thing what we talk about KL Rahul. When it comes to bowling, when Hardik Pandya knows he has got another backup bowler, he performs better. When it comes to
Yeah,
him
yeah,
having entrusted
I agree. I agree.
No,
responsibility
but
upon him,
also
it helps
also
him
Hardik
perform.
Pandya performs
And you saw
better
it in
in
his own
favorable
captaincy, right?
conditions.
In
You
IPL,
will
for
also have to
instance,
see the
Hardik
conditions.
Pandya is always IPL, for instance. Hardik Pandya is always his number 6 bowling option, his own number 6 bowling option. he always came in and
But
balled
he
those
has
overs
always
which
done
were.
well in Australia. Bowling in Australia,
He
Hardik
has,
Pandya
he
has
has, he
always.
absolutely
What
has.
if
But I
Hardik
mean, there are
pulls
two
up?
reasons that I'm worried
What
about.
if
One,
one of your bowler pulls up on a bad
yeah,
day?
exactly. And what if that one bowler is Hardik Pandya? That's my biggest worry because
Yeah.
he is your number one asset. You need
Yeah.
him,
Fair point.
and you might not give him 4 overs
Then
every
that
match.
leaves with
On
that leaves
days,
India with very little room for sort of making changes, because then you have to choose between Dinesh Karthik and Rishabh Pant, and you will also have to choose between Akshar Patel and Harshal Patel.
I will go
These
with
are the only
Akshar
two
Patel
choices that you
any
can
day.
make.
There is no need to bring in Deepak Huda, and I did not understand why
there
Deepak
isn't.
Huda was
Yeah,
there in the team.
No, no,
He's
Deepak
not.
Huda is
I
never in
agree.
contention. If you want to have your sixth bowling option, Deepak Huda is never in
Deepak
contention,
Huda
especially
was
when
just
Rohit
brought
Sharma
in
is
to play in
captaining.
Perth. India feared a collapse, like it happened. India feared a collapse, and they hoped Deepak Huda will be the savior to save the collapse. That'll add extra batting. Not a bad thought process, not a bad one,
No,
which could have
completely
worked.
fine.
Which could have worked. I was not totally against that call in Perth, providing it is Perth conditions. But going ahead in the World
Yeah.
Cup, I don't want to see that. Going ahead in the World Cup, one time it worked. Okay, fine. It gave you absolutely no returns. It was a what do you say? It was a risky investment,
And
which is
you
not
you
paying a
saw, I really felt on that pitch, Deepak Huda didn't look comfortable at all. He looked like like the fish out of sea. He did not look
dividend.
like playing any shot. Two
You know,
deliveries
one
that
thing
he
about
played,
Deepak Huda is that
even
he's
the
got
one
a
he
very
got.
wide stance. He's very
Yeah,
open in batting. I know Suryakumar Yadav also has got something very similar, but Suryakumar Yadav's shots on the offside has improved a lot more, and he can really do that. But what Deepak Huda played that day by having such a wide stance, by just putting the bat out there, was just ridiculous. And that's something which you don't want to see from a batter who came
I
out
mean,
while he lost
he
the game.
almost seemed like he was fending himself with the bat rather than playing a
Yeah.
stroke.
So something which it really shows that you don't have technique to play in those conditions, technique against quality pacers. And let me be very
Yeah,
honest, Deepak Huda also is someone who bats number 3 for Lucknow and for Rajasthan or Baroda, wherever he plays. To be honest, this is one of the best cricketing discussions out there. You talk about neuroscience technique and which others don't. See, as a I don't want to flex myself or I don't want to flex about that channel, but then whole point what we want to do is to bring a lot more things which others don't. We want to have our own discussion which talks about cricket. We have our own fun time. We all pull each other's leg, talk about something which is ridiculously rubbish, but that's part of the conversations we have. But at the same time, we want to focus content heavy on things which are very much important, which are very much relevant. We don't want to talk about इंडिया ने प्रैक्टिस क्यों नहीं किया, ऐसा क्यों कर रहा है, इंडियन प्लेयर्स को प्रैक्टिस हर दिन करना चाहिए, क्या
or
हो रहा
why
है विराट
Rizwan
कोहली
is,
के रूम में.
or why Rizwan is wearing what do you say,
Yeah, lip balm.
cream on his lips.
Did you guys watch that? It was happened in A Sports. One guy asked Wasim Akram. One guy asked Wasim Akram. There was this thing called Ask the Experts in A Sports. I love the discussion these three people are having. So one person asked Wasim Akram, why is Rizwan is the only player wearing lip balm in the tournament? Others don't. Isn't it just showing he can't handle with his lips or something? Wasim Akram lost it. Wasim Akram, तुम लोग इतना वेले हो हमारे देश में, बेरोजगारी चल रहा है हमारे देश में. I loved it. That was one of the best. That was peak moments. I love the kind of questions also. And while you get those kind of answers, Rudra Pratap also says something very similar. Same here. Same here, Rashid. Their debate is so insightful. Different points. Yeah, thank you for that. I learn a lot watching a discussion. I take points and go arguments with my friends. I hope it's useful to win your argument.
In that
Saloni
case,
says,
take my arguments, because that would win you a lot of arguments with your friends.
Saloni says, Abel,
Yeah, I
are
mean,
you?
I think Abel has spoiled a bit of that Q&A session. Abel is indeed engaged.
I am not engaged. Let me be very honest. It's just a
I mean,
ring.
Abel is a 29-year-old guy. He's engaged for 2 years. It's been 2 years. Uh,
Guys,
I think this
Jen is trying to
December,
pull something.
probably
I am a,
31st of
let me be very
December,
honest.
Abel is going
I
to
am
get
a,
married
I
to
am
the
a
love of his life.
22-year-old guy. I'm a 22-year-old guy. I'm not even
See,
close to engagement.
I think
I'm
you know
not
one
even
of those
close to
guys
thinking
who
about
are
all
in
those
his
things.
late 30s, who are in the late 30s who pretend to wear hip clothes, who want to look like the youngsters. Abel is one of them. Uh,
I
but
don't
he's
mind.
getting married on 31st of December in Blue Lagoons, Goa.
Is this? भाई तेरा address दे रहे क्या तू? Guys, let's be very honest. Jen is putting a leg. I'll end the live show right here. I think that's where
No,
I have to
just
stop.
ending the live show. I'll just make this comment. Look out for Taskin Ahmed and Liton Das tomorrow, because I think these are the two players from Bangladesh that will actually pose a threat to Indians. Other than that,
Also,
I think it will be a
Hassan
cake on the
Mahmood,
walk on the
Hassan
park.
Mahmood has got an excellent bowling. I mean, he's got excellent figures this year's World Cup. He's been
Yeah,
their find this year's World Cup, I would say,
he's got great
for
Yorkers,
Bangladesh.
and he's got
He's
great
someone who's got a
Yorkers.
very good Yorker. He's got that pace, you know. He's got that.
He's
He's
got good.
someone who'll terrify you with the pace, and that's something very unique to come from Bangladesh, where you really expect spinners to be the ones to take up the mantle. He's been really a revelation for them. So tomorrow, I think he would be the one that KL Rahul has to watch out for.
I mean, KL Rahul has to watch out for every bowler, not just him. And I hope KL Rahul will be able to counter it. See, with Taskin Ahmed is improved on pace. I'm not sure if they're going to play Ibadat. Maybe they might try to play
No, I
Ibadat
think
tomorrow.
they are going to stick to the same team that beat Zimbabwe. I think they are not going to make any changes on that
Yeah,
front.
they should
Because,
ideally.
because I think all the pacers did a great job. Mustafizur did bowl brilliantly. So did Taskin Ahmed. And I think Mahmood Hassan brings in that X factor with his pace, something which Umran Malik does for his IPL side. Uh, but
Yeah.
So he doesn't
other
have the
than that,
pace for Umran Malik.
no, not close to Umran
No,
Malik.
I
I'm
think
not
he's just
comparing
comparing
him
the
with
roles.
Umran
He's not
Malik, but I'm
comparing
just
the players.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just comparing the X factor like quotient that he brings to the Bangladeshi team. And I think
There's
tomorrow
no
Taskin
way.
Ahmed is going.
I mean, it would be, I think, too far away to say that Umran Malik and Umran Malik and Mahmood are on the same level. But I agree with Sandeep Mani that they bring in the same role. At least, you know, they are the enforcers in the team who are able to get a wicket out of nowhere at least, and that's what I've seen with Mahmood as well. He's ball the right lines. He's got the right mindset.
But
But
I think for
one thing that I
Bangladesh,
am
Taskin
afraid
Ahmed has
is
been the bowler of the tournament. Not just bowler of
for
the tournament,
Bangladesh.
bowler
Yeah.
leading into the tournament as well. I think he has been the best performing bowler, and he has shown massive improvements since the time that Taskin started playing. He had some lean period in between, but I think he has come back really strong. And the bowling attack looks good for Bangladesh. I'm just
Yeah.
concerned about their batting.
Yeah, it's always going to be Bangladesh's batting, which is going to come. For all the small teams, there's always going to be their batting. And I think they're going to
Yeah.
really struggle. If the ball is going to have something to move around in Adelaide later in the evening with the rain
No, but I
around,
think
I think that
somebody
spell from
the likes
Ashdeep,
of
Bhuvaneshwar,
Mahmoud
and
Hassan will
Shami.
struggle tomorrow as well, because even though he has the pace, I think, like, again, I'll like to draw comparisons with Umran Malik. He errs in line sometimes. He has a
Yeah,
great
he does.
Yorker,
He does. He does. I
but
mean, to be honest, their
consistency
tester
is
is
an
always
issue.
going to be big teams. And against South Africa, I saw them both earning on lines. They all went for runs.
Yeah.
Something which I expect to happen against India as well. And I hope KL Rahul gets back in
But
form. If KL
Taskin is a
Rahul
big
gets
game
back in
player.
form,
I think Taskin will come good tomorrow. Taskin
Taskin has
and
been a good
Yeah, I,
Livingston.
know,
player
I
throughout the
remember
year.
how he troubled India as well in one of his, you know, when he was really a good bowler. He was someone who was in rhythm. He used
So
to trouble
this
I
India
think
has
he
been
quite
took a
well.
Taskin
5-wicket
coming
haul
up
in his
to.
debut ODI match against India.
And I won't be surprised if Taskin gets a IPL contract as well. He's been too good a player. He's been getting wickets consistently. He's been bowling at good pace. And he's hitting the deck hard. He's carrying the batter with pace. And especially against Zimbabweans, he did great. And I expect him to do something similar. But I hope Indian batters can counter it. Indian batters are coming from Perth. They have faced possibly one of the best bowling attacks of this World Cup. I know they
Yeah.
failed. You can say they failed. But then it shouldn't really trouble them a lot against Bangladesh. Even Pakistan. Pakistan is one of the best bowling attacks of the World Cup. So even there, you kind of fail, but you saw Virat Kohli, someone stepping up. I expect some of the batters to step up with the likes of Virat Kohli, Surya Kumar Yadav, KL Rahul. I really want him to step up. It doesn't matter if everybody else fails. If KL Rahul steps up alongside Hardik Pandya or even a wicketkeeper, it'll be great. Saloni says no way. He looks 19. I'm not 19 anyways. And I'll take Abel's word. Thank you for that, Saloni. On that note, we'll end tonight's live. Thank you all for watching. Uh, Take my word, take our word, download the app right now and click on the link in the bio. Play fantasy contest for absolute free. Of course, Boom 11 is one platform where you can pick, play, and win a lot of prizes for absolute free. Of course, have zero financial risk. And have a good night, have a good game, watching and joining us live post the game as well. We're going to give you some insights, which you always love, and some good insights.
Good night, guys.